Hello, parents, and welcome back to ParentShift, a place where we speak about conscious parenting. Let's begin by asking, what is a fragile child, or who is a fragile child? Imagine this: a child spends their entire life in a perfectly sterile room. No dirt, no germs, no bacteria. Sounds like good parenting, isn't it? In fact, that's how parenting has become today. When I was growing up, we would run around, climb on trees, drink water from anywhere, spend time in heat, rain, do so many chores, to the extent that by the time most of us were 10 or 12, we were doing all those things to help the adults around us, which possibly today even 20-year-olds wouldn't do. We dealt with situations, we dealt with various frustrations, we figured things out, we lived alone, we stayed alone, we took a lot of beating from each other and from others. Well, that's what life was. But today, that good parenting that I was talking about, where you put the child in a sterile room, no dirt, no germs, no bacteria, what happens then? Medical science has discovered today something remarkable. Children who are raised in sterile environments develop more allergies. They get into more autoimmune and other diseases than compared to other children who are exposed to the real world out there. Why? Because their system, their body hasn't learned how to fight all the germs, the bacteria, and everything. Now ask yourselves this: what if you are doing the same thing to your child's emotion? The body reacts, the body develops illness, and the body fights back, and the body develops all these immune systems. But what about the mind? The mind gets into fight or flight. If we haven't trained our child and the child's emotion, then when the child meets the real world and pressure comes on the child, and various pressures, from peer pressure to performance pressure to social likability pressure to appreciation or lack of appreciation, all of these kind of things, how does the child then react? And that's where, if you have been an emotional rescuer for your child all the child's life, or if you have failed to teach or train the child on emotionally well regulated behaviors and thoughts, the child is going to have serious failures. And then think, what is the connection of this to all the failures that adults have in life today? 75% plus people have reported huge amount of work related stress when they are actually in very well organized jobs. There are only about 5% people in the there is actually 90% of the people in top 5% who are reported to have great emotional regulation, but that percentage drops very fast in the next 5% and absolutely crazily in the next 5 to 10%, which means the top about 80 85 bottom 80 85% of workplace is not able to handle stress and regulate emotion. Why that? Divorce cases are on the rise, and emotional reason for divorce cases are almost about 60 to 70%. There is 4.4 times rise in road rage cases, invariably emotional breakdown. And I can go on with data about adult life. What is the connection? The connection is that behavioral training, emotional training has to start in the childhood. And if that is not done, children will have serious issues. Now, add to this, like what I was telling you, we grew up with such real life experiences which today's children don't get. Where do they climb trees? Where do they go out and play in dirt or real life scenarios? Where do they perform chores today in the era of Blinkits and you name it, the fast commerce? And then add to that IT and AI and everything. So they have this whole thing of instant gratification on top of it. So one, they have not learned emotional regulation. On top of that, then they have instant gratification in so many areas. Where will they be able to handle all the stresses of life? Today, many parents are rushing to remove every disappointment that a child has. Give them gadgets, give them comforts, give them this, give them that. And an excuse that most parents have is, we didn't get it, so we want to make sure that they get it. And that's a truth in a rising country like India. or in fact in many parts of the world, because which is becoming more and more affluent by the day, every failure, every uncomfortable emotion is covered by something that the parent does. In most cases, I'm not talking about those parents who are emotionally and physically absent and they have outsourced their child's parenting to grandparents or creches, etc. Even there's another dynamics playing. But here, for most parents who are there, who are engaged in their parenting, we solve every problem. We try to settle every argument that the child has. We try to manipulate the school system, give feedback to teachers, tell them to be soft. We manage the chauffeur. We manage every experience that the child has, continuously protecting the child. And that's where helicopter parenting is associated with very high rates of anxiety and depression amongst young people today. And another big problem is when one of the parents tries to be strict and teach the child emotional regulation, the other one becomes a rescuer, and which is where both the parents have a conflicting style, the good cop, bad cop. Invariably, the child develops a serious aversion towards the bad cop, and because the good cop is not able to enforce things, it further spoils this. Also, what transactional analysis shows is, or the science of transactional analysis shows is, when children get conflicting messages from both the parents, their own internal regulation becomes very poor. Bigger danger. Not only are you emotionally unregulated, but you are also habitually unregulated about the choices that you're making. No wonder we have so much of problem with drinking and drugs and road rage and you name it. People today feel that they can just about do anything, and that is what they call life. They don't want to believe in traditions, they don't want to believe in structure, they don't want to believe in rules. Youngsters want to break all of these rules. The root cause of all of this thing is they were not taught regulation and resilience in the childhood. By avoiding difficulty, we are actually teaching our children to avoid being resilient and well regulated. In fact, the Harvard Center on Developing Children explains that resilience develops when children experience a manageable amount of adversity with support and with the guidance of a caring adult. They need that. And I've said this often in many videos that we need to provide age appropriate challenge to our children. At the age of 5, the level of challenge we need to provide them is different from age 10, which needs to be a little more complex. But by between age 10 to age 15, we need to steadily increase the complexity of that challenge. A average 14-15 year old should be dealing with the pressures of studies and academic performance along with extracurricular performance around music or sports or whatever else they're choosing in life. In fact, they should be preparing for their college education by then, and developing social skills and so many other things that they need to do life and life management. Are we really providing this level of manageable adversity to our children? In most cases, we are not. And that manageable adversity, not trauma, not neglect, not overprotection, that manageable adversity is what children learn from. Children need small amounts of emotional challenge to build their emotional strength so that they can face challenges of real life. Their emotional muscle grows, their mental muscle grows. You know, Dr. Taylor, a prominent researcher, says that all emotions has about 90 seconds of chemical life, and especially the adverse emotions are then sustained by thought, which means if our children face any negative emotion and then the chemical life of that negative emotion is gone, if they don't have positive healthy thoughts, the negative thoughts are going to govern them, and which means that their victim association, their complaining nature, they thinking that the system is against them or others are against them, all of those negative thoughts will make them suffer more. So not only are we troubling our children significantly by not teaching them emotional regulation, but we are also planting in them essence of behaviors that will create trouble for others around them when they start complaining, playing victim, and become maladjusted. I'm going to stop here. Hope this has been a serious picture that got painted for you. Let's now talk about What needs to be done about this? What should you do about this? Let's begin here. You should first stop dismissing emotions. Let children feel what they are feeling. Let children get face to face with everything in life, successes, failures. If they get hurt, or if they're crying, or if they're feeling this, don't say things like, don't cry, it's not a big deal, or it's okay, you will get another chance. Or don't say that, oh, it just happens sometimes, just forget it. No, don't trivialize that emotion. Try saying something like this: I understand that you are upset. I understand that you didn't expect this fight to happen. I understand this, that you thought you would succeed. Or I understand that you would have, you thought you would be able to do this much quicker, but you haven't been able to. I understand you wanted to succeed, but you failed. Whatever it is. So I understand you are upset. It makes sense. Let's figure out what to do next. That there is your teaching them. Come back, make a choice of a validating positive emotion, and look at what needs to be done. So first up, please make sure that you're not disposing or dismissing the emotion of the child, but you're teaching the child what to do next with that emotion when they're faced with negative emotions. Second, resist being a fixer parent. Don't make the child's life easy. If the, like a small child is making a tar, if they fail, don't build it back for them. Or your child is unable to figure out their homework at the age of 9 or 10, don't jump and rescue them. Give them hints. If they're not able to do it, let them get a red remark or a punishment or two. If they're not able to really cope up with managing their time in the exam, or getting to their school bus on time, let them miss their school bus a couple of times. Let them get some bad scores in some of the minor exams, not the major ones, but the minor exam. That will teach them. If they forget their homework once in a while, and they get punished for it, that can be a lifelong reminder. So several things like these, where, or let's say, for example, they have a disagreement with a friend and they're not able to sort it out. Be there, watch out, ask them questions, but don't solve it or don't fix it for them immediately. Ask them questions, guide them. So that job of validating what can they do next, that is very, very important. Don't become a fixer. Ask questions like, what do you think you can try? What is the situation teaching you? And then let them think, make their choices. And once the situation gets resolved, so that you can anchor the learnings better, ask them questions like, what kind of reactions should you have avoided in that moment? What did the situation teach you that you need to behave differently in the future? So that sort of cements it for them. Every problem you solve for your child is you taking away a chance for your child to learn something significant about emotional and mental regulation. Similarly, become an emotional coach for your child. So number one, let them face their emotion. Number two, don't fix things for them. Number three, become an emotional coach. And here is where you give language to their emotions. Teach them to pause, teach them to breathe, teach them to think before reacting. And this is where you will provide them an emotional scaffolding to learn and grow. Teach them that instead of fear and anxiety which they may be experiencing, there is a way to look at joy. Or teach them that instead of anger, and minor anger, which is irritation or agitation, and then higher amount of anger or rage that they are experiencing, teach them how to look at love or affection. Teach them that instead of sadness, they could look at gratitude. And especially children become sad when they don't get things, or when they don't have gratification of various things. Ask them to look at the gratitude side of life of what they have. Instead of them experiencing disgust towards things, ask them to approach things with interest, with curiosity. Or, instead of them having guilt or shame, ask them to look at pride, contentment, and peace, or awe towards life. These are things that you can coach your child to. I'm giving you a summary of some of the positive versus negative emotions you could look at. Read, research a little bit more, and do this. Give your child a language of emotions. Give your child the ability to pause, the ability to breathe, the ability to think before reacting. This will help you teach your child maturity, and that maturity will then take the child to being a more focused and a grounded human being in their career, in their marriage, in social situations, and so many other places. It'll make the world a better place. Don't teach your child to be insulated and be happy with instant gratification. Teach your child to work with life the hard way, the good old solid way of thinking, acting, and adapting. Your children have to learn, our children, all of us, our children have to learn how to diagnose what's happening, how to communicate in what is happening, and how to adapt in what is happening. It's a very important skill. Give them this lifelong blessing, give them this lifelong learning. Don't make your children emotionally fragile, mentally fragile. That's a big gift that you will be able to give them if you can teach them emotional regulation and emotional skills. Hope this has been helpful. Make some good choices, work with your children, and if you have questions, send them my way. I will work with you with the answer, or if I have to make another video, I will do that. But I will see you soon with another topic like this. Till then, take good care of yourself.